Here is a core truth. You don't rise to your intentions. You fall to your defaults, the exhaustion nobody talks about. Let's start with honesty. Discipline isn't hard because the task is hard. It's hard because it feels heavy. Not physically heavy, mentally heavy, emotionally heavy. You wake up knowing what you should do, and before you even move, you already feel resistance. That weight, that invisible drag, that quiet voice saying, "Not today." That's the real pain point. Not laziness, not lack of ambition. It's the weight of swimming against your own default settings, and no one explains that. There is a version of you that operates automatically. Let's call it your default self. The default self reaches for the phone without thinking, chooses comfort over challenge, avoids discomfort by instinct, conserves energy at all costs. It's not evil, it's efficient. Your brain is wired to reduce energy expenditure. So every time you try to be disciplined, you are asking your brain to increase effort. That is a biological contradiction. You are trying to override efficiency with intention, and intention always loses long term. That's why discipline feels heavy. You are manually overriding automation every day. Think about driving a car. Manual override is useful in emergencies, but you don't want to manually steer every mechanical process of the vehicle. Your body works the same way. Your brain automates everything it can because automation saves energy. Discipline feels hard when you try to live in manual mode. Waking up early, manual override. Choosing the gym, manual override. Starting the project, manual override. You can survive in manual mode, but you can't live there. And most discipline advice is just stay in manual mode longer. That's unsustainable. Your environment is not neutral. It is programming you, not metaphorically, literally. Your default self is shaped by repeated exposure. If your evenings always look like couch plus phone plus low-effort entertainment, that becomes your nervous system's expectation. If your mornings always look like scrolling plus rushing plus reacting, that becomes your baseline. You don't choose your behavior each day. You reenact your baseline. Discipline feels hard when you attempt behavior that violates your baseline. That's why it feels like friction, because it is friction between who you are automatically and who you want to be intentionally. Let's go deeper. Friction is not laziness. Friction is identity misalignment. If your identity is, "I'm someone who relaxes after work," then working on your side project at 8 p.m. will feel like betrayal. If your identity is, "I'm not really a morning person," then 5 a.m. will feel like punishment. The weight you feel is not physical effort. It's identity resistance. You are asking your nervous system to operate outside its familiar script. And the nervous system protects familiarity, even if familiarity keeps you stuck. Motivation works briefly because it temporarily overrides your default. But motivation is emotional, and emotion fluctuates. When emotion drops, your default regains control. That's why you collapse after a few days. Not because you're weak, because your baseline hasn't changed. You try to build a new life on top of an old operating system, and the operating system always wins. So here's the shift. Change the default, not the effort. Now we move to the solution. Not try harder, not be more disciplined. Change your default. If discipline feels heavy, it means the desired behavior is not your baseline. So we redesign the baseline. How? Through environmental inevitability, not inspiration. Humans follow the path of least resistance, always. If distraction is easier than focus, you will drift. If comfort is easier than growth, you will settle. So instead of strengthening willpower, we reverse resistance. Make the right action the easiest action. Not slightly easier, obvious, automatic, embarrassingly simple. If your phone is in another room, Scrolling is harder. If your workspace is already open, starting is easier. If unhealthy food isn't present, decision disappears. The brain chooses what requires less activation energy. So lower activation energy for the right action. Raise it for the wrong one. That's design. Here's the deeper layer. Don't try to change your whole day. Change your first 5 minutes. The first behavior after waking. The first behavior after work. The first behavior after dinner. Those transition points define the rest. If the first 5 minutes are intentional, momentum shifts. If the first 5 minutes are reactive, discipline feels impossible. Design the entry point, not the whole journey. When discipline becomes automatic, it doesn't feel heroic. It feels neutral. You don't debate brushing your teeth. You don't debate wearing clothes in public. Why? Because those are defaults. You don't need motivation for defaults. You need exposure and repetition. So instead of asking, how do I stay disciplined? Ask, how do I make this behavior the normal version of me? Here's what no one tells you. When you stop fighting yourself, you feel relief. The mental noise quiets, the debate disappears, and discipline no longer feels like punishment. It feels like alignment. That's the difference between force and design. Force creates tension. Design creates flow. Discipline felt heavy because you were trying to overpower automation. You were swimming upstream against your default self. But once you redesign the river, you drift in the right direction. And when the right behavior becomes your default, discipline disappears. Not because you became stronger, but because you became structured. You don't rise to your intentions. You fall to your defaults. So redesign your defaults, and what once felt hard will feel inevitable.